listening to KPFT 90.1 on the dial, Houston, Texas. If you're down in Galveston, pick us up at 89.5, and our friends up in the piney woods of East Texas, 91.9. It is time for Songwriter Studio. I'm your host, Tom Tranchilla, along with Lloyd Daniel, our engineer, doing a fine job as he does every week. Thank you, Lloyd, for the use of your studio. It is my pleasure to bring several guests on to today's Songwriter Studio. We have got John in Houston that's going to be introducing Dr. Janice McLean DeLoatch. And our old friend Al Staehely is going to bring in music from his brand new album. Actually, we've got two brand new albums. One is a Post Spirit anthology from 1974 through 1978, as well as brand new recordings. So with that being said, we are going to go ahead and start out with John in Houston. John, it's been a while since you've been in the studio. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. Good to see all you folks.
Yeah, we've got a studio full today. You had discussed with me the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame, and we have the CEO, Janice McLean DeLoatch, on the line. Janice, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Hello, everybody.
Loud and clear. Thank you so much for joining us on Songwriter Studio.
Thank you.
First of all, go ahead and tell the listening audience a little bit about the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and it's coming up August 27th. Hopefully this will air prior to that date, but explain to the listening audience a little bit about the Hall of Fame and who's going to be honored and inducted.
Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be on your program and talk with your listeners today. And thank you to John in Houston PR. What a wonderful guy and great work. And so the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame is an organization that was created because I do research on statistics and compile reports that support where women are at different time periods over history. And this particular one was done in reference to women in music. And what I noticed is that, unfortunately, women in music seems to be a recurring problem in the music industry. When you look at, which I looked at, a 50-year span, just over the last 50 years, women rank only 7.7% in 50 years. And so I looked at the Songwriters Hall of Fame and I looked at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I think that those organizations do great work. But what I realized is that there seems to be a problem with women being overlooked, which is why the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame was created, not because this is a male bash contest, but because not only in music, you can look at television, you can look at film, you can look at medicine, you can look at law, that you can look at many different industries and see that women traditionally are underrepresented. But for this particular interview that we're talking about today, and this organization, Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame, which came about over the last 3 years, we decided to specifically work on elevating and celebrating and opening and creating avenues that will support women in music. So our inaugural program was last year in 2021 in a pandemic where we were told that you could only have 25% capacity in attendance, but we did it anyway. And so our inaugural year, which honored Roberta Flack and Valerie Simpson, Naomi Judd, Jody Watley was our host, the Go-Go's, Climax, and Jacqueline Carr. Our room was almost filled to capacity at 300, which is not a huge number, but it is when you're talking about a pandemic. And what we realized is that every one of those women that were there in support of just trying to elevate women and make a change for women in the music industry. And it was the most incredible, amazing, magical night. And honestly, if it weren't an organization that I were working with, not that I won't be honest with you, I would still say the same exact thing. It was just a moment in time that I have not seen or felt in a long time. And it was so fun and so magical and it was so wonderful. All right. Now we're into year 2. And this year also brings forth an amazing just list of powerhouse dynamic legends in music. Gloria Estefan, Saida Garrett, Marilyn Bergman, who wrote a lot of songs like The Way We Were, which Barbra Streisand actually sang. And even Barbara Streisand herself is in support of the work that we're doing, Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame, and sent a video celebrating the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame. And we also are honoring, oh my goodness,
Loretta Lynn and Indigo
Loretta.
Girls.
Yes, Loretta Lynn, Indigo Girls, Doe, Gloria Estefan, Rosemary McCoy posthumously, and Junko Yagami, who is from Japan. And so, again, another amazing year, amazing honorees. And this group I really like for a lot of reasons. The first one was amazing as well. But this one, you have all genres of music. You have Latino, you have African American, you have folk, you have country, you've got blues, and even pop and rock and international music. So this one this year just is so eclectic, and wow, it's just amazing. It's incredible and fun to do this work. So there's all of that.
Well, thank you so much for doing what you're doing. It will be held in Washington, D.C. on August 27th. And will this be aired on PBS or one of the public or commercial television networks?
We hope that at some point one of the commercial television networks will pick this up. I can tell you we do have a live stream link where people can click on the link. It's $19.99 for the live stream link, and you can watch it at home and still be there and support us as well. But it also is in person at the Jack Morton Auditorium at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And it is Saturday, August the 27th from 5 to 9. So if you're in Washington, D.C., and you're looking for something to do on Saturday, we hope that you will come out and support the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame. Not only do we do an award show once a year, because this will be an annual program, but we also have a museum exhibit that we've started and a scholarship program that the funds that we raise through the award show and sponsorship goes toward giving scholarships to women who want to go back to school to pursue a career in music or entertainment. Music, entertainment, and education. Sorry. And specifically, our scholarships, one of them will be for a woman who is 40 and over to go back to school to continue education or to have a career in music or for whatever they want to use it for, but specifically 40 and over, because once again, statistics have showed me that there is not a lot of support for women when you are over 40. So, what do you do with those dreams? Do you just, you've helped your husband or your spouse, you've raised your children, you've sacrificed your own career and your own life, and now you wake up one day and you're 50 and you haven't done anything that you wanted to do for yourself. And who's there to support that woman? So we also want to fill that gap as well as the scholarships for younger ladies as well.
I really like what you're doing, Dr. Janice. This is wonderful. I'd like to urge the listening audience to tune in online. Give that contact the online address again if they want to view the award ceremony.
So you can go to womensongwritershalloffame.org. It's www.womensongwritershalloffame.org. Not to be confused, specifically women, WOMEN, Songwriters, halloffame.org, and there you will see the live stream link on our homepage, as well as information and the link to purchase a ticket if you'd like to attend in person.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Janice McLean DeLoatch, and we really appreciate your time to let the listening audience know about this great event. We do have a Pacifica network there in Washington, D.C., so maybe they can pick this up and get some of the local people out for the show. Thanks again for joining us on Songwriter Studio, and good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Have a great day, Janice.
You as well.
John in Houston, you brought Al Staehely once again in the KPFT studios. We had a great session with him. I don't know, it's been close to a year ago since he's been in to join us on Songwriter Studio. Al, you've got a brand new project that you're about to release, plus the project from the 1974 through 1978 catalog that you brought back to life. Tell the listening audience a little bit about that.
Well, the one titled Post Spirit Vol.1, 1974 to 1978, not a very poetic title, but is descriptive. Really represents when I was in the band Spirit, and the band broke up in about 73. And then my brother and I did an album as the Staehely brothers for Epic Records. But not much happened with that, and my brother got an opportunity to join JoJo Gunn, and so he went and did that. And so I decided to embark on trying to get a solo deal and concentrating on writing songs that I thought were appropriate for solo artists rather than just a rock band when I was writing for Spirit. And so these songs represent some of those recordings done back in that time. Alex Casanegras, who is the recording engineer that did the Spirit Feedback album and the Staehely Brother album, had a studio called Haji Sound, and he gave me some time, and I went in and recorded some of these tracks there. For example, the one that you mentioned and are going to play later, Wish I'd Said, was done in that studio, and brought in some great people like Vanetta Fields and the Blackberries and Clyde King, who had been on the Spirit album, Staehely Brother album, and they really liked the work we'd done together and came in really for free and did this stuff, because at that time I didn't even have a budget. These were demos to try to get me a deal. And Alex did some of that stuff, and then at one point Greg Geller, who was the West Coast A&R guy for Epic Records, heard some of that stuff and said, look, I'm going to give you a $5,000 budget to go and do some things. And then if Steve Popovich in New York, who's the head of A&R, likes it, we'll do a deal. I said, okay. So a day after that meeting, he called me and said, hey, you know who John Boylan is? And I said, yeah, he was, I know he's Linda Ronstadt's manager, and he had a lot to do with putting the Eagles together because Don Henley and Glenn Frey were in her band. And so Greg said, well, he's just joined Epic as a staff producer. He heard your demos and would like to work with you on this next set of demos. Would you be up for that? And I said, yeah. Do you have anything that you could send me that he's produced? Because I mainly know him as a manager. So he sent over a test pressing of a band that he had just finished their first album. I listened to it and I thought, well, it's really well produced, and it's not exactly the kind of thing I'm doing right now, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Turns out that test pressing was of the first Boston album. Wish I still had that test pressing. It'd probably be.
Their first album was excellent, by the way.
It was, right out of the box. I don't know, those of you who can remember, the very first song released shot to the top immediately. And
which was probably more than a feeling.
I think it was. I think it was more than a feeling. And then so John then was going out on the road, meeting them. At any rate, my project got delayed, and by the time we got it done, and during the course of, I was hearing from Greg Popovich likes what he's hearing, and so by the time we got it finished, so Steve Popovich was leaving Epic to start Cleveland International with his first act, Meatloaf. So then we had to wait for a new A&R guy to come in, and during that time, Boylan was saying, I know you want a solo deal, but how about join a group with some other guys like Timmy Schmidt and Danny O'Keefe, and it was one of the guys from Pure Prairie League. I forget which guy it was, but he said, because, I had a lot to do with putting the Eagles together, and Epic would like me to do something like that for them. And I said, well, sure. I mean, theoretically, if there's, if we gel, and but don't those guys have commitments to other labels? Well, there are some things we'd have to work out, he said. At any rate, I had lunch with Danny O'Keefe, who was a great guy. You remember him from...
He just played in Houston just recently at Main Street Crossing, yes.
Oh, really? If I'd known that, I would have gone. I wasn't paying attention because he's a wonderful guy. But actually, the four of us never gotten a room together because I guess the other details never worked out. But at any rate, when the new A&R guy came in New York, Lenny Pizzi came out, and we had a meeting, and he said, "Yeah, I like your stuff, but weren't you supposed to be a part of that group Borland was putting together?" And I thought, oh no, now he sees me of 1/4 of the super group that didn't come together. But anyway, so that deal didn't happen, and some of those songs are on this Post Spirit Vol.1 album. In particular, Coastin', Safecracker, Stand in Love, Too Long Alone. I think those are the ones that were done at Epic's expense. So then one of the next things that happened, finally I got a solo deal. Started the album, had Steve Cropper on guitar, had Gary Malabar on drums, who had played on a lot of the Steve Miller hits and played on the Van Morrison Moondance album, and had Al Garth from Loggins and Messina, sax and violin, had Pete Sears from the Jefferson Starship on bass and keyboards. Got halfway into the album, the record company went out of business. So that's another batch of songs.
Yeah, but then eventually you got the tapes and you brought them back.
Yeah. I had the tapes all along. I mean, because at that point, one company was out of business, and Epic, they weren't interested in them. And so, anyway, so basically that's most of the tracks that comprise this album, Post Spirit Vol.1, that have never been released. So they're actually authentic
original recordings, and really the original mixes. I didn't go back and have stuff remixed, so it was all done analog, back in the days of 2-inch
analog.
tape, right?
The stuff at Epic was done at the record plant, which was, the studio to go to at that time. Some of the stuff that we did for the record company that went out of business was done with the Haji mobile truck at a house that I was living in with a recording engineer. And this was the same truck that did several Loggins and Messina albums. And anyway, so that's kind of a background on where these things came from.
Al, I've got 2 brand new songs here that you just got done recording a new album. We are going to play stuff off of the 1974 through 1978. But before we do that, why don't you introduce this brand new song you've just recorded, Something Good Is Going to Happen?
Well, these recordings happened really during the pandemic. I have a place out in Marathon, Texas, which is in the Big Bend area, and when everything was kind of shut down, we're only 40 minutes from Marfa, and I was thinking, I've got all these songs I keep saying I'm going to record. I haven't gotten around to it. I've heard there's a studio in Marfa, and I know 2 good musicians that live there. Fran Christina, the drummer from the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and Scrappy Judd Newcomb, a great guitar player that I'm sure you know of. He's played with so many people, so many recordings in Austin. He was in Ian McLaughlin's Bump Band. He's played with, I can't even think of all of them. But anyway, he had relocated from Austin to Marfa. So I called them up, and I wasn't really planning on doing a record. I just thought, I just want to get these songs down. And they said, yeah, okay, let's do that. They said, by the way, Chris Marsh is coming to town to do another session with us. And then after that, the studio will be free. And Chris, you may know, played bass with Eric Johnson for years. I'd heard him play with Scrappy and with Johnny Nicholas, and the 2 of them worked so well together. I said, see if he wants to play on my stuff, because I'd rather not play bass on them anyway, because these are songs I wrote on guitar. I'll just play rhythm guitar. And so we had one rehearsal at Fran's house, went in the studio, did 6 basic tracks the first day. I thought, wow, these guys have chemistry. And of course, there were some other days of overdubs and vocals, but they were excited about the material, and they said, well, man, you ought to come back and bring 5 or 6 more songs, and you'll have an album. And so 2 months later, I did that and started thinking, well, I guess I do have an album. And so I think I'm going to get around to releasing that after the first of this year. So probably be in first quarter of 2023.
Well, let's give the listening audience a little shot at these songs. Brand new music from Al Staehely, Something Good Is Gonna Happen.
Well, something good is gonna happen. I can feel it in the air. Something good is gonna happen. When it does, I'm gonna be there. 'Cause I can feel my luck changing, even though it ain't changed yet. My heart is like that wheel of fortune. Step right up, I'll take all bets. Well, I bet I'll find a girl who loves me, and we can't stand to be apart. We're gonna fly away together, wing to wing and heart to heart. Something good is gonna happen. I can feel it in the air. Something good is gonna happen. When it does, I'm gonna be there. Well, I bet I'll find a girl who loves me, and we can't stand to be apart. We're gonna fly away together, wing to wing and heart to heart. 'Cause something good is gonna happen. Well, I can feel it in the air. Something good is gonna happen. When it does, I'm gonna be there. Something good is gonna happen. When it does, I'm gonna be there. 'Cause I can feel it in the air.
Brand new music, Al Staehely. Something good is gonna happen on the soon-to-come-out brand new LP. And we've chosen one more song off the new record, Emily. Give the listening audience a little heads up on this track, Al.
This track, this is a song written about, I don't know if you've ever had a female friend that you really loved, but not that way. And in fact, you're in another relationship anyway, but she wanted it to be another way, another more romantic way. But that's what this song is about.
Let's listen to the brand new music, Al Staehely, Emily.
Emily, before you hang up on me, please let me say a word or two about the way I feel for you. Emily, your friendship
Al Staehely, brand new music, Emily, on the soon-to-be-released album, formerly of Spirit. Al, we've had a lot of good conversation early on in the interview, and we're going to dive into the album we had talked about, Post Spirit, 1974 to 1978. While that song was playing, we discussed briefly the litigation that was going on between Randy California of Spirit and Led Zeppelin, who was opening for Spirit back in, I guess this was the late 60s?
Yeah, when the first Led Zeppelin album came out, and I guess they did their first tour in the U.S., they opened a lot of shows for Spirit.
And then they just recently, I guess within the last 5 years, there was litigation stating that Stairway to Heaven intro was too similar to the Spirit song. As far as you know, it's not completely settled. It was settled in the appellate courts, and it's maybe ongoing at this point.
I think it's over, but I'm not sure. Maybe there's one more level to go to, but I haven't been following it that closely. But last I heard, unfortunately, Led Zeppelin, they prevailed.
Deep pockets.
Yeah, they can spend a lot of money on that stuff, but I would have liked to see Randy's estate prevail on that one.
Absolutely. I've heard both versions, and the similarities are that. They are too similar for me. Al, you're a longtime attorney in the music business, and you at one time represented Stevie Ray Vaughan as well. Do you want to touch on that briefly before we dive into this next track?
Yeah, I represented him on his first record deal, I guess, which was really his only record deal, because he stayed with Columbia and CBS all that time, and it was really great. And it was early in my career so he was sort of like the first prominent client I had as an entertainment lawyer. But actually, he wasn't prominent at that point. If you remember, that was, 1983, and about the last thing that you expected to be the next big thing was a guitar player from Texas right in the middle of all the English New Wave stuff and the Flock of Seagulls and all that kind of stuff that was happening. But he was so great and got out on the road, he could not be denied. And the rest really was and is history.
And he released, at least 5 records in a very short period of time. All became great sellers and just, to this day, very, very heavy radio play. We miss you, Stevie. Let's go ahead and dive into the Post Spirit, 1974 to 1978. We have the opening track queued up, Wide-Eyed and Innocent, featuring Steve Cropper on guitar, as we all know from Booker T and the MGs, and then exploded in popularity after the Blues Brothers movie was released, and Steve Cropper was a main character in that. And let's dive into that, and then we'll talk a little bit about it after this track. Brand new, released from old recordings, Post Spirit, 1974 to 1978. This is Al Staehely.
Hit town, you had a smooth face and a clean slate, but now they're both etched deep with lines. Oh, blue-eyed ambitious, let the world look so delicious, but you went back for seconds too many times. We were Lord knows we wanted too much too soon. We were wide-eyed, innocent, sweet, sweet babe, in the soft pale light of a sweet summer moon. Oh, we fell in love in the soft pale light of a sweet summer moon. We used to see jaded dreamers who've been stepped on one too many times. Ooh, you could not understand how they could be so weak. Oh, but now your slip is showing and your soul is slipping down into the streets. And your smile so rustic I can almost hear it squeak. Summer moon, we were wide-eyed and innocent. But Lord knows we wanted too much too soon. We were wide-eyed and innocent, sweet, sweet baby. The soft pale light of summer moon, oh, we fell in love in the soft pale light of a sweet summer moon. Oh, baby, baby, we always wanted a little too much too soon.
Al Staehely, Wide-Eyed and Innocent, featuring a great solo sax by Al Garth and Snuffy Walden, killer guitar work on that. And I got to say, Al, your vocals on this were just soaring and crystal clear.
Oh,
My compliments. This should have been a hit record.
Well, you're right. It never got out to get a chance. It was never released back then. So.
Well, you did a great job of putting these tracks together. These recordings were done almost 50 years ago on, I understand, 2-inch tape. So they had to be, and I know this is fairly new technology, they bake these tapes to make sure they don't literally disintegrate over time. Why don't you explain to the listening audience a little bit about the process you went through?
Yeah, there's Ampex, certain kind of Ampex tape. I think it was 456 Ampex. Found out started deteriorating after a certain amount of time, flaking off. And so if you had that kind of tape, analog tape, you really needed, there's a baking process. You put it in the convection oven over a certain degree. I don't know. I didn't do it myself.
It's a science.
Yeah,
I've read about it.
So anyway, they were baked. That way you usually get at least one good transfer to digital. So these were cut on 2-inch analog, mixed to 1/4-inch stereo analog, and then have been sitting there all these years. They were baked and then transferred to digital. So the only time it hit digital was at the end. Before that it was all analog.
Which basically preserves it for eternity, once it's digitized. Right. I want to talk a little bit about Feel the Heat, this next track. John, I want to ask you about this. Evelyn Rubio is actually playing sax on this. Was she playing sax on the original recording?
No, of course not, because she would have been even I don't even know if she was born back then.
That's what I was wondering when I was reading the credits on this track.
No, this is the best mix I found of Feel the Heat when I was going through all these tapes. For some reason, didn't have Al Garth sax on it, so I guess it must have been a mix we did before we added his sax. And so I wanted to go with that mix because I thought it was the best mix. So we went in to the studio here in Houston and added Evelyn. So Evelyn is the only overdub on any of these
on the entire tracks.
on
John,
the
did
entire
you?
album. Yeah, really. So she got to play with Steve Cropper.
Did you bring Evelyn in for the project, and how did you approach her, John?
No, I didn't actually. She performs a lot with Al and his brother John, quite a bit, like at the Mucky Duck. So they know each other well.
Okay.
And so it was a natural for Al to talk with her about it.
No, we've been playing together for years. When she first hit town, I introduced her to Calvin Owens, who was still alive at that point, B.B. King's ex-band leader, and he put her in her
know
band,
exactly
and then
who he is,
she started playing in my band, and ultimately she did a couple of her own albums. And so I've known Evelyn ever since she's been in Houston.
When I reviewed the album, I thought, how did he get Evelyn on this back in the 70s? So that explains it.
Yeah.
Very good. Let's listen to that track right now off the brand new album, Al Staehely, Post Spirit 1974 through 1978. This is Feel the Heat, featuring Evelyn Rubio.
It's 4th of July, New York City, and I'm really feeling the heat. Cops on horseback in Central Park, and on Broadway they're pounding their beats. Black men playing jungle drums out on Amsterdam Street. But I'm a light-skinned, fair-headed from out of town, and I can really feel the heat. So lay me on your big old bed, make me feel the things you said. Turn on your window fade, oh baby, tell me I'm your favorite man. It's 4th of July, New York City, and there are fireworks all around. They're drinking beer up in the Bronx, but you never know what's going on in Chinatown. The Upper East Side is all deserted, 'cause they have houses at the beach. But they're hanging out in Harlem, and then you can really feel the heat. Let me on your big old bed, you just got to make me feel the things you say. Turn on your window fade, and tell me I'm your favorite name. 'Cause the city eats a man alive, need your loving to survive. Barrel bum with an anchor tattooed on his right hand. The sailor missed a boat, spent the last 20 years on land. Now he plays with children in a fire-plug fountain and feels complete. Sailing empty bottles down the gutter, he is now captain of his fleet. But when you're living down in the village with artists, dykes, and queens, well, Independence Day is every day. Like any day you see, so lay me on your big old bed. Ooh, you just got to make me feel the things you say. Turn on your window fade, tell me I'm your favorite man. Making love on cool white sheets, and I can really, really feel the heat. Oh, I can really feel the heat. Oh, make me feel it. Oh, I can really feel it. I can really feel it. Feels so sweet.
Feel the Heat, Al Staehely, with great sax solo by Evelyn Rubio, and that Steve Cropper work was excellent. John, you had mentioned something while the song was playing. Go ahead.
Evelyn Rubio will be the opening act for the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame in Washington, D.C. on August 27th.
And big kudos. We love Evelyn. She just did a killer job, and great job of bringing her in and overdubbing her on that track, Al. If you're just tuning in, Al Staehely is our guest on Songwriter Studio with a little help from John in Houston. And gentlemen, we've got limited time left, so we are going to jump up to track number 4 on the album, Live Like a River. And this is featuring Jim Horn doing some great flute work I might want to mention. You want to prep the listening audience on this track?
Yeah, this is a co-write I did with a guy that wrote a lot of songs for co-wrote songs with John Denver. And this was really just meant to be a demo. And actually, I'd never really performed it live. I didn't consider it to be one of my songs. And I kind of discovered it. It had been when I was going through the tapes to put all this stuff together. The guy's name is Joe Henry, but not the Joe Henry that's, there's a younger Joe Henry, but he was a lyricist and gave me this lyric, and at any rate, it was sort of a discovery in my vault, so to speak, and everybody seems to dig it. In fact, there's a video of it, and there's also a video of Feel the Heat and Wide-Eyed and Innocent on YouTube.
Oh, very cool.
Anyone wants to take a look.
Let's listen to this brand new release by Al Staehely off the Post Spirit 74 to 78. And the name of this track is Live Like a River, featuring Jim Horn on flute.
I want to live like a river and love like a waterfall. Let it all come tumbling down, down, down. Oh, I want to live like a river and love like a waterfall. Everybody gets so high when the children fly. Take a message to my daughter. Take a message to my son. Take it to the children whose time is yet to come. Who let them fly among the distant stars. Learn why the wind's so free. Shout the mountains down and whisper with the sea. Who let them live like a river and love like a waterfall. Let it all come tumbling down, down, down. Oh, I wanna live like a river and love like a waterfall. Everybody gets so high when the children fly. Let them fly among the distant stars. Learn why the wind's so free. Shout the mountains down and whisper with the sea. Let the children fly. Let the children fly. Let the children fly. Let the children fly. Ooh, I wanna live like a river and love like a waterfall. Let it all come tumbling down, down, down. Oh, I wanna live like a river and love like a waterfall. Everybody gets so high
Live Like a River, brand new music, Al Staehely, from the Post Spirit 1974 to 1978, brand new album, excellent tracks, recorded back in the 70s, or other than some overdubs we had mentioned earlier. Al, where do they go if they want to order a copy of this brand new album? And I understand you have a gig at Mucky Duck we want to talk about as well.
Playing the Mucky Duck at September 13th, and actually Evelyn Rubio will be with us, and my brother, John Staehely, Mike Rosenbaum, and Freddie Steady Kirch on drums, you may know from his own albums, as well as Jerry Jeff Walker and the Los Gonzo Band. So that's September 13th. Also, my music website is just alstaehely.com. The only thing tricky about that is spelling Staehely. S-T...
or pronouncing it.
Yeah. If you can pronounce it, you can't spell it. If you can spell it, you can't pronounce it. Staehely.com. And you can also hear some all the samples of all the songs on this album. And as far as where you can get it, you can stream it on Spotify or Pandora. You can download it digitally. CDs are on Steady Boy Records. Hopefully Cactus Records has some here in Houston. If not, I'll have some at the gig at September 13th.
Signed autographed copies is the best way I find. John in Houston, contact information. Your clientele continues to steadily grow. I don't even know how many artists you represent anymore. Do you even know?
Around 70 total.
About 70 artists you represent.
Yeah.
And you give them, you send out these blasts all the way through Europe and the U.S., and I don't even know how many contacts you have on your email list anymore. If they want to contact you, where do they go?
It's real simple. John in Houston, I-N, the word I-N, John in Houston, PR.com.
Thank you both for being our guests on Songwriter Studio. It's been a blast. Please, we do urge the listening audience, if you like what we do here on Songwriter Studio, pick up that phone and dial 713-526-5738, or go to KPFT.org and hit that tip jar for your secured online pledge to this station and this show. Thank you so much for listening all these years, and we are about to move into our new building and desperately need your support. All right, we're going to go out with Wish I'd Said. Al, thank you so much for being our guest. This is an acoustic guitar-driven song, and you brought in the Blackberries for this track. Great Blackberry background singers. Tell us a little bit about that, and we are going to go out with Wish I'd Said. Go ahead,
Clyde
Al.
King and Vanetta Fields were the two main female background singers in the Blackberries, who sang on everybody's records. They were the biggest go-to background singers in L.A. at that time, and they do a great job on this song.
All right, let's listen to that track right now. Thanks again, Al Staehely and John in Houston, for joining us on Songwriter Studio. Thanks, Lloyd, for doing all he does back in the booth and getting these shows ready for air. And please stick around. Up next, Irish Airs. We'll see you next week. This is Tom Tranchilla saying goodbye and have a great day.
When I heard your voice on the phone today, I was at a loss for something to say. Though I talked for a while, but when the line went dead, our lips had not spoken, but what our hearts would have said. I wish I'd said be happy, wish I'd said I care, wish I'd said come home if it don't work out right out there. You said life's been good, and the boys okay. that new man of yours has moved in to stay. When you told me these things, I choked on my pride, and words would not come. No, God knows, God knows I tried. God knows I tried. I wish I said be happy. I wish I said I care. I wish I said come home if it don't work out right out there. I wish I said be happy, and I wish I said I care. I wish I said come home if it don't work out right out there, babe. Don't work out right out there. Wish I'd said be happy. Wish I'd said I care. Wish I'd said come home if it don't work out right out there, babe.